Yes, Harsh, now you can start.
ओके आवाज आ रही है ना?
हाँ, आ रही है, आ रही है।
हेलो एवरीवन, आई एम हर्ष अग्निहोत्री और आज हम इंग्लिश में सो हेलो एवरीवन, आई एम हर्ष अग्निहोत्री एंड टुडे वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट एंगुलर जेएस. Like I will be talking about basics of it and what basics and what all we should know before going to practical sites. And then Yuvraj will take over and he will show you all of the practical sites and how do you get started, how do you make stuff with it. Okay, so basics of AngularJS. So first of all, what is AngularJS? AngularJS, you should all know. May all know. AngularJS is a web framework. What is a web framework? Web framework is like a library or a software that enables us to build web applications. So like web single page web applications and multi-page web applications, etc. A web framework helps us to build it faster than normal JavaScript. It's like a layer on top of JavaScript that makes it easier for us to build a big application, big project. So AngularJS is one of those web frameworks. It is owned and operated by Google. So Google created this whole framework in 2010, and then Google, after creating, made it open source and available to everyone, and now we all can use it. So it's AngularJS is basically best for single page applications. So like those applications you see on internet that never need to reload, like YouTube and Spotify, etc. When you fetch data in that application, they reload internally. You never see the reloading animation on the browser itself. So those applications are considered single page application, and Angular is perfect to build them. It's intended to build those applications. So yesterday you learned React. So in React.js you use JavaScript as base language. In Angular, they created Angular using TypeScript by default. They didn't use JavaScript. TypeScript is like a better version of JavaScript, a more strict version of JavaScript. So when we code in JavaScript, if you have attended like last 3 or 4 sessions, if you know that when we code in JavaScript, you don't need to specify type of objects, type of variables, etc. What is function return type and what is object return type, and what when we create object, you don't need to specify everything. It's easier like Python. In TypeScript, it's different. So like if you ever coded in C++ or Java, etc., they when you code in that, when you initialize a variable or a function or a class, etc., you have to specify the data type that it's using, it's going to return, etc. So same as that, in TypeScript, you have to specify everything. So why do we use TypeScript in Angular? Why don't we use JavaScript? Why is it different? TypeScript, first of all, is best. It's made to be secure language. Like in JavaScript, if you ever code something, you cannot tell when your error is gonna pop up. The moment you realize your error is there is when you push the code to mm, to working stages. So when you are working and suddenly when you click on that component or whatever you're making, then you see the error there and you can't get it before. In TypeScript, most of the time, if you make a small error, a careless error, like you return something that was not supposed to return, or you didn't return anything when there was a thing you need to return, then it will show error at that time when you are writing the code. That's the best part of TypeScript, and that is why Angular decided to use TypeScript. Okay, so what's the next point? Prioritizing, structuring, and functioning of code. So this is common in all web framework. They prioritize the structure of how you write a web application. So like in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, if you write it in plain JavaScript, you have to maintain your own structure. HTML have different structure, CSS have different structure, and JavaScript have another structure. So you can write whole HTML differently, you can write CSS in your own way, and you can use JavaScript however you want. But with web framework, they teaches you how to. They don't teaches you. They enables you to write it all structurally. So like you can create components, you can create modules, etc., and you can put it all in structure, and it is much easier to make large scale applications. So like you don't have to worry about where all of your code is. Every component, every module, everything will be containerized in its own set of code. So that's much easier, and removal of trivial code. So yeah, when you make this, and the frameworks have most of the code, so much of the code that you need written already, and it is abstracted. It is abstracted from you, and you don't need to worry about so many things. So your code becomes much cleaner. So like you can make a very complicated component using frameworks, built-in tools, and you don't need to worry about all of the code that is required to build it. The framework will take care of it, and you can write a very good component with very less code. So it removes trivial code. So this is AngularJS. AngularJS is a web framework. It is owned and operated by Google. It serves a purpose of creating single page application. It uses TypeScript. It prioritizes structuring and functioning, and it removes trivial code. Okay, so what's the next? So next part is history of Angular. So before web frameworks, we used normal vanilla JavaScript, and at that time the JavaScript was weakly typed language. So we didn't need to worry about all the errors and anything while working with JavaScript. But the code base grows so much that I told you this before, the code base grows so much that it is very hard to work with it. That's why these companies created a Facebook, Google, and open source communities. Every community created some kind of framework to make the whole process of web development better for us. So, like, because a single developer cannot manage all of this framework, and even a team of developers, they need a lot of work to maintain these frameworks. That's why they created Angular in 2010. So when it was created, it was called Angular.js because it was fully made from JS already. So most of the code that it was the most of the code that it was built on was JS, and from birth it was open source framework. And like unlike React, the React uses component based architecture. Unlike React, the Angular, the Google decided that they will use model view control architecture, so MVC architecture, and some other architectures that they have. So these architectures are different from component based architectures. They because Angular itself is very different from component based architecture, like React, etc. Angular have a lot of things built into it, while React is a minimal framework. They don't care about a lot of things. They don't ask you to care about a lot of things. They provide you with minimal code so that you can work easily, and you can get started easily, you can work easily, and whenever you need more things, you can just use npm to install those things. But Angular, when you create an Angular app, they ship, they don't ship, they install whole application with a lot of things that you can use. And thus they use model view control architectures to work with models like databases and backend, etc. Models work with databases and backend. View work with front end, etc. And control is like bridge between them. So this is different architecture than component based architecture, and Angular uses this. So in 2016, because this whole architecture was very time consuming. Time consuming as in very time heavy for machine, because a lot of code was there being executed. So in 2016, they re-released whole Angular JS, and they removed JS from it, and they released Angular 2. This was whole different code. They didn't use any old code. They made whole different code, and it was very much improved in performance, and syntax were made very much simpler, and it provided the main thing, that was mobile developer support. So we can develop the applications on mobile just like on desktop. Yeah. So when you so in Angular second version, before you developed when you developed an application, it was primarily for desktop. But in 2016, they added mobile dev support. So they added so many features that was specific so that the application that you are writing can be cross-platform. You can put it, you can make PWAs out of it, etc., and you can just port the same application to mobile devices as it is, and it will work. It should work. So that was the major part of Angular JS, Angular 2 in 2016, and after 2016 they kept updating Angular, but there was nothing very significant after 2016. In 2023 they are still updating Angular JS, and now we move forward with features and pros of Angular JS. Okay, so we will talk about features of Angular, and wait a minute. Okay, so now we'll be talking about features of Angular. So Angular comes with many features that React doesn't have, and that's good thing when you use Angular. When if you decide to choose Angular, it comes with features that you might use, and it's already there in your project. You don't need to add those features by third-party applications or by the provider itself. They comes in your project by default. So some of those features are two-way data binding. So the data binding between what can how can we just say two-way data binding? One second. Okay, so two-way data binding. So it's basically it provides a secure way for your application to communicate with models and views. So models and views need to communicate together, and two-way data binding enables them to do so very securely. So like model is a backend thing. Model is not a backend thing. Model handles backend thing. Model handles databases, etc., and views handle front end. Views handle like all of the UI stuff that you see on the screen. So they both need to communicate when you have an application. They both need to communicate to show data, etc. So that communication, the Angular makes sure that it's secure by two-way data binding. Okay. So second is dependency injections. So dependency injections, when you create a component, when you create any type of code, and you can you can use Angular's built-in dependency injection to add the code add the classes and objects, etc., that you need on that code, on that small code, without creating too much clutter, without adding a lot of code. You can just import those things and use them and create an object from those classes, etc., and you can use it. So can I give you an example? This is hard to understand. So I don't think so. You can, if you know import, export, etc., import, export, those things that you do in JavaScript, same as that, it's in this dependency injections. You can use Angular's built-in things, and you can create your own custom things, and you can inject them into your code, and you don't need to create a clutter. It helps in reducing the complexity of your code, and you can use it anywhere you want in the code. So third thing is directives. So directives are like they provide custom built-in features that are already available on Angular to manipulate the DOM elements. So what is the DOM elements? You should know DOM elements. They were taught like in all those past events. A DOM element, a DOM is document object model. It's the thing you see on Evo, a website. Okay, so DOM elements are like H1 and T and etc. All of those HTML elements. Those elements are considered DOM elements, and when you push those elements using Angular, you can add these directives to them. So directives are like you can add if you want to put a text conditionally. So like if you want a text to show if only a condition is being met, so you can use a directive which will verify that condition, and then after, if it's met, then only it will show the text. And it's like a single line of code that you can add after a single line of code that you can add after you write your syntax, or after you write your syntax of whatever DOM element you are using it on. So you can use that code inside of that syntax, and if that code if that code comes to true, if that code works, if that code works, then that element will show. So directives are of many kinds, not only this, that like if statement, the for statements, etc. All of these directives, they help you in using DOM elements and using logic on DOM elements. So you don't need to, on if you've used JavaScript, you know that you need to get element by ID and then work with logic on that. In Angular, you can directly use DOM element. You can directly use directives on DOM element itself, and they will work. You don't need to get the element and then work from it. It's much easier. Then the fourth thing is templates. So it provides you with templates. It provides you with pre-built code that you can work on. You don't need to write everything from scratch. So this Angular CLI helps very much in this. It provides you with templates and code, etc. that you can use a single command to write it, and they will set up everything for you, and you can just start working on that template. You don't need to write every single thing, every single code, and connect every single thing on your project. It makes much easier to add things, to remove things, etc. And it gives you a already pre-made template that you can work on. You don't need to write everything on your own when creating a project. It's very helpful. So next feature of Angular is routing. Routing is in React too. What is routing? So I told you that Angular is a single page application. A single page application. Should I show you? Wait, I can show you example for this. So like this is a single page application. So if you click here, etc. Just so you see, there's nothing loading here. You don't see any loading on this page. Everything loads itself, and they don't need to load the whole web page from scratch to show you that information. So they can do everything because they create component, and they don't need, when I click here, they don't need to load all of this data, right? All of this nav bar and this sidebar, they don't need to reload this. They can just reload all of this, and it will work. So this is a single page application. So what is routing? So if I click, you see this URL, here, this is a route. But if you click here, you see URL change. So you need to change URL, but you don't need to reload application. You want to change the URL, but you don't want to reload the application, because application contains state of your state is another topic that Yuvraj will probably tell you about. You need to maintain state of your web page. So that's why state of your web page, it needs to stay where it was. So when you reload the application, it resets the state. That's why we prefer not to reload the application. And the routing comes handy because it can change the route of your application, can change the URL without reloading the application. It's good. It's good in that. Wait, let me. Sorry. Okay, so there's a routing, and then there's forms. So Angular comes built in with a lot of pre-built code. Forms is one of them. They help you making a form, connecting it to database, and they do all of this heavy and big things the big lengthy part of code that you will do if you create it from scratch for using Vanilla.js. And they do all of this, and you can just use the small code snippets that they provide and create a form and link it to your database, etc. You don't need to worry a lot about forms, etc. and where's the data going. It helps a lot in that. So the next is performance. Okay. So next is performance. Performance, I talked to you about that already in history or something. Performance of Angular is better. No, it's Worse, yes. Performance of Angular is worse than React, but it's still good after the version 2. Performances of Angular is worse than React because Angular used this MV, what was that? Yeah, model view control model. So Angular uses real DOM of web page, real DOM of browser to to make whole web page work. While other frameworks like React, etc., they use virtual DOM. They don't create real DOM to store information. They use virtual DOM and they just update elements from that, and they just like create graphics on a whole web page that a web on whole browser that a browser don't need to worry about. Browser don't care about all that. But Angular use different approach, and they use real DOM with real elements, all of those HTML elements, etc., to to display on the page, to display on a browser. And when the applicant, when the element updates, it updates on a real DOM, not on like on a virtual DOM. So this process, because we did only, they still managed to not reload. So that's why it's heavy on CPU. So that's performance. Performance is, that's why Angular is bad. Then is a bit bad, and then accessibility. So Angular, in Angular there are many features. There are not many features in Angular. You can make website accessible easily. So like for disabled people, for people colorblind, etc., all of these people, when you are targeting them, you can create a website that's accessible to them very easily without needing to worry a lot about code and all. They like you need to, but the Angular comes already with a lot of those libraries, etc., that you can use on your already existing code base, and it will make a job a lot easier. So then there's community. So Angular and React, both of them are biggest communities and frameworks in whole world. Angular and React, both of them are biggest communities. And Angular is owned by Google. So when you're creating enterprise level application, the Angular takes care of all of things, and you don't need to worry a lot about third party dependencies. If you know third party dependencies, what the third party dependency means. So when you install a package from npm, so if you are using a particle JS package, etc., I saw a particle JS package, that that package creates a background, but it's a third party package. It's created by someone else. If you worry about that, if you use that in a normal JS project, and if it stops working, you need to worry about your application because it will break your code. But in Angular, so many things are already there that you don't need to worry a lot about external uh, third party packages, and the Google makes sure that the things they are shipping to you are fully tested for almost every device, and they will work. That's the biggest perk that you can use AngularJS for, because it's maintained a lot by Google. Google very heavily maintain it, and you don't need to worry about all of if your code's going to break because of some third party package. You can still use third party package, but most of the things are already there. So, and after this, Angular is still open source, so there's still a lot of things that you can use from internet directly to your project. So like you don't need to always think about if Google have it, you can just use npm to install things too, and you can take care of it or yourself. The community keeps building on. That's great part of it. And then there's testing. Testing. If you open your code base, Yuvraj will probably tell you about code base. If you see that there are many files that are dedicated toward testing. So when you put your application to serve, so like on localhost or on internet, you can write code that can test the code that you have already written every time. So you don't need to worry about what's going to break, what's not going to break. If you write some new code, you can use testing. You can use the built-in things that Angular already have for testing, and you can justify your own cases for Angular to test your code, and it will test it and it will tell you what is broken if you manage to break stuff in spite of having TypeScript, because TypeScript is very good. TypeScript don't let you break stuff easily. Stripe checking, they don't let you break very easily. And testing is another perk on top for making your code very good for production level. So then after this is complete features. So all of these features revising. There's two-way data binding between views and models. There's dependency injection. So like using objects in a code, like by importing them, you don't need to rewrite whole thing. There's directive for DOM manipulation. You can add things to DOM elements. You can add conditions. There's templates like
हाँ
you can use
रेंडर का डिज़ाइन है
pre-built
मिल
code
जाती है
bases,
तब
and
जाके उसका
you can build on top of it. You don't need to worry about all that, and you don't need to worry about writing everything yourself. And there's routing is for changing URL and making sure that your web application don't need to load. There's forms are like, so you can easily handle a form without connecting everything between one another. Angular will take care of it. Then there's performance, I told you performance, accessibility, community testing, etc. Okay. So now there's React versus Angular, because these two are big frameworks. Other frameworks are open source frameworks, so none of them can get a lot of hype and attention, because these two frameworks are owned by big tech corporations. So React is owned by Facebook, and Angular is owned by Google. So those tech companies, they care about their framework, and they constantly use their own resources to build better version of their framework and keep their framework in usable and working. So you can rely on these frameworks while building your applications. Yeah, so that's why these two are main frameworks that you hear about when you think about framework of JavaScript. So the difference, you already learned React yesterday, I think. So the difference is, first of all, language. So React is a library. React is not actually a framework. Some people call it a framework, but React is actually a library. It provides you with a minimal code structure that you can use to serve your application to. Okay, so it provides a code structure. It gives you with a code structure that you can build on top of on for your web application. It's still very helpful, but it's not very much feature rich and very much like it doesn't. You don't need to. When you use React, they don't ship with a lot of things that will make your whole project heavy. They ship you with minimal things that you just need to get started. And then if you need more things, then you can use third-party dependencies to add them to your project. That's good. So React is a library. Angular is a framework. I told you about framework already. So it does a lot of things. Okay. So I have to brush it. So Angular is a framework, and you already know about framework, and I already told you about framework. It already comes with a lot of things that you need from it, and you don't need to worry about third-party libraries. And also, how can I say this? So I already told you about this. You can do so. I can skip to second. That's rendering. So I told you about rendering also. React uses virtual DOM. Virtual DOM, as in they don't use a real DOM elements of browser. They create a virtual DOM. They create virtual DOM of them, and you use elements on that DOM. So they don't need to interact with real DOM elements every time you make a change, and that results in faster reloads and fast time and faster processing of a website. While Angular use real DOM, so that's a bit slower, but it's also better. It's You can say it's better. When you are, mm, It's better because it's closer to systems. So like Angular make it slower, but that's because Angular have more control over system. It's using real DOM elements, real things, so that's better. But and React's using virtual, so that's for faster sake. And then there's learning curve, because I told you React provides you with minimal things. So when you open React application, there's a lot less things than that of Angular application. React have very less things. It provides you with simple code, and you can just jump to your main component, start creating components, start importing things, and that's easier to work. And when you learn Angular, then you have to think about their models and all those components and everything else, testing, etc. That's a lot. And that might be overwhelming for you. So in learning curve wise, React is easier to work with, but Angular is better for industrial grade applications. Now scalability, I told you about it. Scalability means how good an application is gonna scale when you put it to production and when it grows. So a React application will require a lot of third-party libraries. So when you add animation, it will require library. If you add other things like if you use APIs, etc., it will require third-party libraries. While Angular have a lot of things built into it, so you don't need to worry about libraries, etc. And also, Angular is very much supported by Google more than the React is by Facebook. So Google developers make sure that Angular is industrially graded ready, so you don't face issues. I told you about this also. So scalability wise, Angular is better. Architecture wise, React use component based architecture, that's simpler, and Angular used MVC architecture, that's model view control architecture, that's a bit more complicated one. Okay, so this is, and then there's performance. So React is better because of virtual DOM. I told you Angular is a bit slower because of real DOM. Then there's tooling. So React didn't don't come with toolings, and React don't come with a lot of tools that you are going to use. And Angular comes with many tools that you might not even use in your project. But that's why React is lightweighted. So if you create applications in both of them, the React application tend to be lightweighted compared to Angular application because they don't ship with a lot of toolings pre-installed. You add them when you need them. In Angular, they ship it with pre-installed, so you don't need to add them at the time of coding. But if you didn't use them, then it will add space, it will add storage to your final application bundle. So that's tooling and the community. I told you about community. React and Angular both have diverse community. Both have open source community, and open source community keep building for themselves. But Angular have an edge because Google provides it with its own resources, while Facebook don't do that much for React. And that's it. That's from my side. That's basics of Angular and React. Now, Yuvraj will talk to you about Yuvraj will talk to you about practical sides of things.
Okay, so
Okay.
guys, here Yuvaj will take over, and he will just give you a quick around that how you install Angular on your system. So how you basically start working with React application with a template on your computer. You don't have to do much about that, and now Yuvraj will take over. Yes, Yuvraj.
Hello everyone. So first of all, to run a Angular project on our PCs, we would need to install Node and npm. So uh, first of all, we need to download Node. Go to the first link, and then whichever is your uh, operating system, download the stable version of it. Like here in my PC, I as I'm on a Windows PC, I installed a Node version for Windows. Then you don't need to do anything else. Just do next, next, next to all the and check all the boxes. And once it is installed in your PC, uh, you can check using the command node version, which says it is 16.17, which is the current stable version of node. Then you can also, and npm comes downloaded with comes bundled with node itself. So if I do npm version check, it is 8.15 version currently. Then to install Angular, you just need to write the command npm install -g to install it globally. Then write Angular CLI, and it would download the Angular CLI. Angular CLI is basically used for initializing uh, your new projects and avoiding the work that you would else put in writing. You would need writing the template code which is repeated again and again. So here we have downloaded Angular. To check which version it is, you can simply write ng version, and it says that it is Angular CLI version 15. And okay, so this if you get this interface, it means that the download has been successful. Now we would also need VS Code. So just type VS Code. From here you can uh, install VS Code on your Windows or whatever operating system you are using. Go to this link, and from here you can download. But I already have downloaded it on my system, so I wouldn't install it. But you get the idea. Now to initialize a new project, uh, of Angular, you need to type in ng new, and let's say we are making a to do app. So I call the project to do, and I press enter. Then it would ask, do we need routing modules too? And we are going to use them. So I type yes. Then it gives us option like which form of styling we are going to use. We would go with default CSS. And just by doing this much, we are getting uh, our project initiated by the Angular CLI itself. Now it takes a few minutes, so we'll wait for it to complete. Once it is completed, I would show you basic file structure of the Angular project today, and then tomorrow we would uh, complete this to do app project, just to give you the practical knowledge of whatever uh, has told you, like whatever has taught you. So it is currently installing packages from npm.
One more thing I
And
want to add here, if you guys need to install a Angular app in another directory, you can select the directory first by cd, and then you can run this command ng new to do. Okay, so it's currently being installed in the documents, then projects, then GDSC folder.
okay, so we don't need to worry about these warnings. We would just cd into our newly created project and open it. Okay, so this is our Angular project that is created when we typed in the Angular ng new command. So this consists of some files. First of all is VS Code. Uh, the This has three JSON files. This does nothing but helps in maintaining the correct versions of the uh, dependencies that would be being used, just in case, like, if multiple developers are working on the same project, uh, then this is helpful, but we don't need to do anything with it. Then the next folder is a node modules. Node modules is a basically a folder which consists of all your dependencies in one place. And again, we don't need to change anything here. So we would go to src, which is source. Now here you would find an app folder, which consists of routing modules, then components, app component css, app components html, app components spec ts, and app component ts. So what is this? As Harsh told you that Angular follows an MVC format. So model view controller. HTML page consists of all the HTML part of the component, like all the HTML part of the code, and then you have CSS, where you would write in all the CSS related to this specific file, like app.component.html. All the CSS related to it you would write in here separately in a separate folder, a separate file. Then uh, app.component.ts, it consists of all the logical part. So whatever the JavaScript or TypeScript code that you want to write in, you would write here. And this app.component spec.js ts, it is basically used for testing, but we are not going into that right now. Then also we have app.module.ts. This is used for storing all your this is used for storing all your mm, modules and directives that you would create in one place. Then we have assets, wherein you can see we have only git keep file. Basically, in assets folder, you can have all your images and files, videos, whatever that you would be using in the application at in one place. Then we have favicon. Favicon is basically the icon you see in the Chrome search bar. Like, this is a favicon. Then index.html. It is the starting point of the Angular app. So what it has is a blank HTML file which has app root inside it, imported inside it. Okay. So what this does is app root takes us to here and places all this code inside this body tag. Okay. So all the content of app.component.html would be placed here would be placed here when we use this these opening and closing tags, which say app dash root. Okay. Then we have main.ts. Just like in C or C++, you have a main function from where the execution of the program starts. Similarly, in TypeScript, in Angular, you have main.ts. So this is the first file. Like, this is this is the point from where the execution starts. You won't be changing much into this file, but what it does is it bootstraps or bundles the app module, which is this file. Okay, so this bundles app modules, and from here on execution starts. Now, then we have style.css. Style.css is for writing global CSS code. So, like, what you write in here in app.component.css, it is specific to app.component.html, and you won't be like whatever CSS is written here is exclusive to this app.component.html. Okay, but whatever you would write in style.css, it would be global in nature, and it would affect uh, code your HTML files irrespective of what folder they are in. Okay, then this is edit.config dot edit config file. This is mostly used for testing purposes. Then we have a dot git ignore. This is basically for version control. It what it does is it has a list of files that wouldn't be included when we push our changes into GitHub. Okay. Then we have angular.json. Angular.json basically consists of all the dependencies that Angular has installed and commands related to Angular. Then package log.json and package.json. Both these files are present in every project that you make using Node and Node and npm. So what these two files store is a list of all the commands related to the project, version of the project, name of the project, and dependencies related to the project. Okay. Then we have a readme.md, basically to tell when we push this on the GitHub, to tell the user about the project, uh, like what the project is about. You have this file. It comes pre-written with download instruction and like download and running instruction for the project, but you can make changes here as per your needs. Then tsconfig.app.json file, this is used for like maintaining this is used for compiling angle TypeScript TypeScript codes of like whatever code you are writing in Angular, it is in TypeScript. Like all these files have an extension of TypeScript, no? So these like how these TypeScript files would be compiled is dictated here. Then you have tsconfig.json, is it is basically for linting purpose. And similarly, there is tsconfig.specs.json. It is also uh, used mostly for testing purposes. So we won't be making any changes in these files. What we would be doing tomorrow is make our to-do app. Okay. And yeah, and most of the thing that we would do tomorrow would be in here only. Okay. Now, like ngserve command is used for hosting your like running your Angular project. So it says setting up. Then what this command does is it hot serves the project. So whatever changes that you make in the file after running this ngserve command is directly reflected, and you are not required to
Okay, so I think some uh, error must have happened on Yuvraj side. So this is the last of the session, and I think tomorrow we will continue with our hands-on experience on Angular by using To Do app, by basically making To Do app, and uh, tomorrow we will see how you can uh, try to build your own app using Angular. So yeah, that's it from my side and from our side. So tomorrow we will meet again. Okay. uh, I'm ending this meeting now. Bye everyone.